you? Welcome. Come in and find your seat. It's been reserved just for you. You know where to leave those burdens. We're on chapter 19 of A Flower of Freedom. I wrote this fictional book in the hopes of reminding and helping people to remember that many lives were seriously impacted by the war in Europe. They were impacted for generations. Never again should still be the cry of every heart. Okay, are you settled in? I'm glad to see that you've dropped those burdens. We'll begin. Chapter 19, Coming to Terms. Word got around quickly. No one in their sphere could believe that the Saint Laurents were allowing Marie to go off to Paris alone. The phone calls and the general clamor got so bad the next day that Donovan called a barbecue meeting at his house. His wife Michelle initiated the telephone tree to inform everyone. Everyone showed up with a salad or a dessert and a point of view. Dr. D had planned to wait until the meal was over to talk with everyone, but the level of upset among the elder members of the group was such that he was worried for their health. When the last person arrived, Dr. Donovan asked everyone to take a seat. The elders sat in lawn chairs and on picnic benches grumbling, and the children sat on blankets on the ground. They too were grumbling. The summer heat did not help, and everyone felt cranky. Finally, Dr. Donovan laid out the facts. He said, "I wish Marie well, and she has my full support. Not because I love what's happening. In fact, I probably hate it more than you do. I remind you that Maybelle and I were the very first people to hold our little miss, who's almost grown up now. This hurts my heart, but do you know what would even hurt me more? I would never recover if I had to watch the Saint Laurents fight a battle to keep their family together and lose, even though they were in the right. It was Marie who made me understand what a protracted legal battle with a rich financier could mean. I checked with Jean-Claude to make sure that she was right. She saw with the eyes of love. She didn't need a lawyer to tell her that what she herself had heard in the financier's voice was accurate. She knew that he was speaking like a man who had the power to hurt people. No one is forcing this on Marie. It was her plan, not to save herself, but to save her family. And say what you like, but in my books, that's noble. It's not only noble, though. It's practical. She could allow her family to do battle with her erstwhile great-uncle, or she could look at the situation to see if there was a silver lining. You know Marie, you know that when she looks for something, she finds it. She enlisted Jean-Claude's assistance to negotiate an accord with a man who was bent on war. Now, are you still going to fight against her when she's fighting for her family? Anyone who thinks that's a good idea, I invite you to listen closely to what Jean-Claude is going to tell you, and then, if you still feel that way, I think we need to have a discussion, because I honestly believe that this was a community of people who loved one another and who would support what is in the best interests of each member. Jean-Claude, will you tell everyone what you and Marie negotiated?" Jean-Claude stood in front of the group and Dr. D went back to the barbecue. Jean-Claude began. "Don't think that I did not feel the weight of all of your feelings as I negotiated this deal with Marie's paternal great-uncle. I think the crux of the issue is that Marie is the sole remaining heir to a storied French family. The Pomade name has meaning in France. I checked out Achille Pomade, and he's powerful. He has links with the financial world and with the government in ways that some old families have in Europe, even if it's less familiar here in Quebec. Don't try and tell me, though, that you wouldn't be a little bit nervous if you had to do battle for what was yours, if it was a mayor or an alderman or a professor opposing you on the other side. Sometimes what you think is right does not have the same level of power as it does when you face someone on equal terms. Marie's a teenager. She's still in high school. Her uncle is a well-connected, wealthy businessman who specializes in finance, and Marie's instincts were good. His weapon of choice is financial. He thinks he has the right to reclaim his family's only heir. He has no children. His only brother is deceased. His brother had a daughter named Anne-Marie Pomade. Many of you know that was the name of Marie's birth mother, Colette's dear friend. Monsieur Pomade made it clear that he would never rest until Marie Saint-Laurent, which he insists on calling Marie Claire Pomade, was returned to him. He told me that he was willing to spend every cent he has to get her to return to France. That would mean bankrupting Oscar and Colette. Marie grasped that before any of us did. If that happened, neither Marie nor Bertie would have the funds to get an education. Marie did not make this decision lightly. She made it to preserve her whole family. It was a clever solution, too. Her parents gave me permission to negotiate on her behalf. She has to return to Paris to live with her aunt and uncle, who are elderly. She will attend her last year of high school there, but that has the added benefit of allowing her to go directly into medical school from high school. They do it differently in France. The great-uncle has promised to sign over their hereditary estate to Marie, to pay the taxes on it until she can, to finance her education if her grades are good enough to get into one of the top medical schools in France, to give her a monthly allowance that is very generous, even considering the cost of living in Paris. He turned to Marie and he asked, "Have I forgotten anything?" Marie replied, "I can come home to Montreal 1 week after school finishes each year, but I have to be back 1 week before school starts again, except for this year when I have to go much sooner. My great-uncle Achille said that Bertie can come with me for a couple of weeks this time. He promised to cover all the costs. He was a lot nicer when he knew that he was going to get his way." That's the end of chapter 19. I look forward to seeing you again. As always, I'm your friend Deborah.